Obi, this is such a wonderful moment in time to chat with you. And we definitely want to hear all about your journey. But I know that we wanted to chat this morning about this fabulous, wonderful event that you're creating, a new experience, a virtual book launch. So, can you share with our audience what will be happening on November 21st?
November 21st, correct. I'll be launching my book, but I wanted to do it a little bit different. So, um, in order to do it differently, I wanted to incorporate a few different artists in my book launch. So, this book launch event is associated with artists, but it's focused on my book. That's this right here, The Intentional Five Verge. So each artist will actually be tackling one of the letters from the acronym Verge, which represents vulnerability, experiences, relationships, gratitude, and evaluation. So um, everything I do is pretty much a collaboration. I believe in collaboration, not just in the work that I do, but I feel in every field, every work that we do, there's a level of collaboration that needs to happen. So presenting this work with artists is another form of how I usually move, which is always in collaboration. Um, Now, writing this book has taught me a lot about being able to work with others and how that works. So it works with any industry. So that's why I wanted to work with artists, as I'm also into the arts. I'm a designer as well. So I wanted to work in that same field so people understand how my work also works with creatives. Actually started it started because I felt as if I wanted to be in more than one place at a time, and that just wasn't possible. So being in the classroom, being an administrator, I was able to touch the people that I was directly impacting, and I'm not someone that wants to stay contained. I don't want to stay within four walls, and I felt like that was the challenge with where I was, is I was helping people closest to me, but I always wanted to know how I can go bigger. What can I do bigger? How can I share what I'm doing with other people? Naturally, I'm pretty chill unless you get to know me, and then you'll know the different sides of me. But to most people, you won't know what I'm actually doing unless we have a direct conversation or I'm working with you as a client. So it was very important for me to try to expand and share what I'm doing with other people. And that came in the form of a book. Did I know it was going to come in the form of a book? I didn't. But once the idea came, once it was given to me, I believe it was a God idea. Once it came to me, there was nothing that could stop me from writing it.
When you decided you would do this launch and you understood it would be virtual, what was the first thing that came into your mind of how you would structure the event?
So the first thing that came into mind is how can I engage people in a way that still makes sense? How can I engage people in a way that they can still feel like they're a part of what I'm doing and it's not a virtual setting? Working with artists, I can go back and forth and talk to them all day. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a virtual kind of art gallery space. So in this virtual art gallery space, you'll be able to see the work of these artists. You'll also be able to see lifted text from my book, and we'll dissect it. We'll have that dialogue to give us a feel as if we are actually really there. I like the component of being able to see other people's faces. So that will still be there where the audience will be able to engage when they're during the moments of engaging. But still, just to see people and be in the same room and us just dialoguing can be a bit daunting. So I wanted to mix it up. So you'll hear from a lot of different people. My host, Laverne, she's going to take some of the speaking points. So it's not just only me speaking. I know it's my book, but I do want to share that with other people and give us that same feel as if we were in the same room. You wouldn't just hear from me only. You can talk to the person to the left, to the right. So I still wanted to give that feel in this virtual setting that we're in.
Yeah, that's great because, obviously virtual seems to be something that may not go away even if we get back to some kind of normal.
Right,
So I think it's important that we find ways to make it interactive, to make with people want to sit in front of their
right,
screens and, enjoy themselves because it's challenging. We all have to admit that it's
right.
challenging. Well, tell us about who are you as a kid? What were the things you liked growing up? Because it's always fascinating when you talk to artists,
Hmm.
what spurs them. When you're little, you could say, oh, I'm jumping around doing this, but what are the things that, from your memory as a child that impacted you that you could talk about?
That's a great question. I never really had to think about that too much. I think I just kept going. But now that you bring it up, I would say that I was very adventurous, and I was very observant. So I grew up in a household of a single family household, single mother, who worked extremely hard. So a lot of what me and my siblings had to discover, for me, I had to discover on my own. So I was very observant. I would listen to what people said, and I would take that time to say, is this for me? Is this not for me? Some things I picked up that really weren't for me, acting tough in the hood, like that wasn't for me. Had to realize that quickly.
Yeah.
But you pick up things, and I realized one thing that I continued to do on my own was I continued to I continued to match things up. Like when it came to fashion, I continued to be very particular about how I dressed, and it wasn't more so of what was trending, but it was more so of what I felt looked good on me. And I think that's kind of like the foundation of how I move is what feels right for me, and how can it speak to others. The colors and stuff I would wear, I would always think, oh, other people are gonna appreciate this. So even though it was a small scale, growing up in like middle school, doing stuff like that, I realized that that's just kind of how I operate, how I think, how I process is what makes me feel good. What things do I recognize as beautiful that I feel like others can also see it if they recognize that perspective, or if they can actually uh, have a different type of narrative that could have them see the way I was seeing. Trying to be like somebody else is just so much more difficult. Um, the amount of work, the amount of like, I mean, great. You wanted to be like somebody else, like that takes a lot of work. So you've already accomplished something that you have a lot of skills within you. You have the ability to be able to create this image that's actually not you. So why not spend all that time actually being truly who you are versus emulating something that isn't you? You already have
Definitely.
the skill. You know what I mean? It's like you
Right.
have the skill to do that. So now put it back into you and see what you're really made of. I think we're afraid of ourselves at times, and that's because we're so brilliant. The things that we can do, rather than dealing with the fact that, oh, I can actually create something magnificent, magical that no one has ever seen. Let me shy away and do what I've seen other people do, because what if they don't appreciate that? But that's the important thing, is to follow through on that thing that we see or feel within us.
Well, I think it seems like the journey for you is pretty much allowing people to understand to go past their fears. And I think that's
Absolutely.
really what I feel the book, The Verge, is about. Ultimately, don't be fearful. So let me give you these
Right.
steps to help you get to that place where you can just jump and be okay with that.
Right. And I do that through my lens, through experiences that I've been in. So my book isn't going to tell you what to do. It's going to give you a bit of some guidance, based on what I've experienced. And I think that's really soothing for people, because me telling you you need to do A, B, C, and D, that there's always a spectrum of what that can look like. And I wanted to create a guideline that gives you the room to be autonomous, and still understand the importance of a foundation. So what is really important is just the foundation. And Verge, I feel, is a foundation for who you are. It's not going to tell you to be like me, but it's also going to tell you what it means to be a productive person in this world. It may look different for you, but if it's founded in these five values, it's always going to lead to success. It's always going to lead to your purpose in whatever it is you decide to do. But it's always going to leave you more awake than you were before.
Yeah, I like the fact that when you said that about not wanting people to do what you necessarily do, because basically what you're saying, you're allowing everyone to evolve at their own pace. Because
Yes,
everybody has a pace of when they can come to that aha moment. And I think it's
absolutely.
wonderful to have a book where you can find that pace on your own without being hammered over the head. Look at me, I'm doing this.
Right, right. and it goes into these values. I don't want to keep knocking it on the head, but I think it's really important to be
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable. Once you're vulnerable, and these aren't independent of each other, they're all intertwined. So when you're vulnerable and you're thinking about your experiences, your past experiences, what was the lower self, the higher self in you, and recognizing that highest thing that you've done, that's actually in you. So that means you can do that every time if you desire to do that. So focusing on those things versus the experiences you've had that actually don't represent who you are, because we all have both. So it's the importance of recognizing which ones actually lift me to higher occasions and how can I continue to do that. Part of that is with vulnerability, your experiences, building relationships. We haven't learned how to live in this world alone because we weren't meant to. So always trying to realize that somebody has something to share with me, regardless of who they are. If I look at them accurately and correctly, I can find something about that person to realize that I needed to speak to them or I needed to learn this from them. Whether it's a good interaction or a bad interaction, it's always something to build for yourself, but not thankful in a sense of as a reaction, but thankful as in intentionally going to sleep, knowing that something amazing will happen tomorrow. So the readiness to receive the beauty and the things that are afforded to you, and evaluation. So being able to self-evaluate moment to moment. Sometimes we evaluate ourselves after big issues, but making it become a practice where we're evaluating ourselves in after every interaction. So if we did have a relationship where it didn't go so well, being able to evaluate what made this relationship tumultuous. You know what I mean? What was the challenge in this? So when you move forward, you don't have to continue making the same mistakes, and you can adjust, you can adapt, and also meet people where they are. Man, my mom's like a superwoman. Let me just throw that out there. She um she had 7 kids. My dad left us when I was 5, and I'm the middle kid. So there was plenty of other kids behind me, or my siblings behind me, that didn't quite even get to know who my father is. So my mother had to keep us. Her name is Joy, just like yours.
Yeah, all right. I like her
so
already.
so she was able to keep that joy in our hearts. We didn't, honestly, I never really realized, I never even understood what it meant when people said, "Oh, you're coming from a single parent household." I didn't understand that because that's all I knew, and my mother always made it. She always filled that gap of love that we felt we may have needed from a father. I didn't even really think of that. So I think her ability to create love um, was very, very powerful because I never felt in lack, even though we weren't well off. Like I remember days where we had food coming in, and I don't know where the food was coming from, but I know like it came from somewhere that wasn't from my mother going to the grocery store. So it was evidence that we were struggling, but it never seemed like that. And her ability to do that was very powerful to me. And I don't, to this day, I still am confused. I would love for everyone to come, even if you haven't purchased the book yet. It'll be a great opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about me, what my book is about. We'll be reading a little bit from the book. And it'll also be an opportunity for you to learn about some of these artists that I brought on. Every person that I brought on is intentional. It's meant to happen. These are people that I've met here in LA, and also one from London that I've met. She actually came to LA, and it just goes to show the importance of building relationships and what it can create. So I would love for you guys to tune in. It's going to be November 21st. That's a Saturday. This Saturday coming up, actually. And it will be from 5, roughly an hour and a half. So it'll be from 5 p.m. That's Pacific Standard Time. If you're in the East Coast, you can join in at 8 p.m. What are you guys doing? If you're not really doing much, just jump on, learn a little bit more about what this book is, feed your soul, um, just tap in. So it's free. There is an option to purchase the book, and I'll sign it, so you can look at that. That's all on Eventbrite. But you can go to my website, which is www.wakeupthesoul.com, and you'll see a link, and it'll say virtual launch. If you really want to go straight to Eventbrite, just go to Eventbrite and type in the intentional 5, and it will pop up. You'll see my face down at the bottom, and you'll know you're at the right place.